As a busy nonprofit woman leader, my guess is you spend a lot of time head down doing the work of today and just dealing with what's going on in front of you. But do you know that it's important also to spend some time thinking bigger picture and seeing how things fit together? It is. And today we're going to talk about building that leadership competency of increasing your systems awareness. Welcome to the Surviving to Thriving podcast that helps women leaders in nonprofits get out of survival mode and thrive in both leadership and life. I'm your host, leadership development coach Kathy Archer, and I help women leaders enjoy impactful leadership. What I know about you as you run your nonprofit is that you want to feel competent. You want to do your job well, and you know there are some things that you need to learn and figure out and develop in yourself to do that. In episode 62, I introduced you to the 5 leadership competencies that are kind of overarching in all of the things that we need to learn in order to lead more effectively. And those were getting things done, achieving those results, making sure that you're developing strong relationships, systems awareness that we're going to talk about today, self-awareness that we're going to talk about on the next episode, and then that all-arching integrity, honesty, authenticity piece. So we've been talking about these over the last few podcasts. In episode number 64, I talked about how to get results. And then in episode number 65, we talked about building those relationships. Then we paused for a moment. And last time I introduced you to Michelle Malloy Dillon, and we talked about how to do those coaching skills and how to coach your employees using curiosity as your superpower. So that's that relationship piece. If you're going to build those good relationships, you need to learn to coach your employees. And now we're going to talk about that other skill about building that systems awareness. And there are a bunch of components to systems awareness. But what I want you to think about is, again, head down is where we spend most of our days. Systems awareness is bigger, longer view, and wider view of what's going on in your organization. So systems awareness is that bigger view, that macro view, right? We get down in the weeds is micro, but we're looking at the macro view. What's going on out there in the future, coming down the pipeline? What do we suspect is going to happen? What do we know is going to happen? Having our finger on the pulse out there, but also on what's going on around us within our communities, within our other teams in our organization, perhaps our peers, our funders. Maybe, we're here doing delivery, but what's fundraising doing and what's the tech department doing and what's HR doing? Having that awareness of how all of those intermix. The first section we're going to look at is community concern. Community concern is who's the community that you're serving and what's the impact you're making. We want to know, what are you contributing to that bigger picture? That might be your geographic community. It could be your sector community, the clients you serve, but starting to think about the community at large and how what you and your team and your day-to-day work, how it all fits into that. This is really about building that sense of purpose in your organization and talking about that sense of purpose and meaning with your people. What is our value, vision, mission? And then individually, what does it mean for us to be doing this work? Why are we here? And for you to have those conversations and connect the day-to-day work to that bigger picture. So the first real thing that you need to think about when you're creating that bigger macro view is, what difference are we making and why are we making it? And making sure to lift your head up sometimes and look at that bigger picture and communicate that down to the people that you're working with and leading and supporting. So I'm going to remind you that all of this that I'm talking to you about comes from the Leadership Circle Profile, which is a 360 assessment that you can get if you go to the Leadership Circle Profile. Just search it online. I'll make sure I put the link in below. And this is an assessment that helps you measure how you're doing with all of this. You can go online now and do the free self-assessment and get a sense of where you land in each of these categories. And if you're interested, you can also do the deeper dive, have your peers, your coworkers, your employees rate you, score you, give you some feedback, and see how that all fits together. What I love about the Leadership Circle Profile is when you do it with yourself, you get to look at how you score yourself and how everyone else scores you. And then you get to see the blind spots, right? I think I'm really good at this big picture thinking, and my board thinks I am, but my employees don't think so much. And that's really powerful information to have. So just a reminder, as I say, as we're going through these, that's where I'm getting this information from, is the Leadership Circle Profile. The second component of systems awareness is having what's called sustainable productivity. It's one thing to chug along and do this hard work, making sure your team's doing the the stuff every day, getting stuff done, powering through. But can you do this long term? We often burn ourselves, our employees, and our teams out because we're powering through so fiercely, but never taking the time to sort of check in, step back, recharge. Sustainable productivity is making sure we're achieving those good results, making the money we need to fundraising, ensuring that we're meeting standards, doing the work to make sure that our policies all are in line, everybody's got their training, we're covering shifts, all of that long term. Because if we start to fall apart, we're not actually going back to community concern, being there for the people that need us. So I don't know about you, but I have high standards. And I often worked hard with my team to make sure that we were meeting those high standards. But in order to do that, we had to provide resources. So maybe it's extra hours, hiring staff if we needed to, maybe stepping back from some of the projects we're working on. Maybe it's getting them new technology. Maybe it's getting, cell phones or computers or vehicles if you have vehicles in your program. What is it? When COVID hit, we needed to make sure that everybody had the technology to communicate. Maybe the resources are training. Do we actually have the right training to do this? Do we have the things that we need to run a program with our clients? If you're doing craft programs and you don't have the craft supplies, that's a problem. And so making sure that as we're having these high standards, that we also are supporting the people to do this work. And then as we're going through this, making sure that we're celebrating when we meet milestones, hit those targets, achieve our goals, acknowledging the work we're doing. If we're going to keep chugging along long term, then we need to step back sometimes and go, hey, we just did good last week. We were short staffed, but man, we nailed it. Or when this happened, we pulled through, or I really seen your strengths. We need to step back sometimes and acknowledge the work that we're doing and how we're getting there. Because it's not you alone that's doing it. Everybody on the team is doing it. And if we want to make sure that we're moving along, having that bigger systems awareness, we need to step back and be aware of how everybody's playing their role and supporting them in that. The final component of systems awareness is what's called systems thinking. So not only do you need to be aware of what's going on out there, but you need to think with that systems focus. You need to know how everything's interconnected. I often think of the systems theory, which is, how you touch one thing and everything else, there's a ripple effect. It's like having the baby mobile hanging and you tug on one of those little animals and they all move. That's what this is. If we lack computers, how is there a ripple down effect? Or if we're understaffed, what's the ripple down effect? Or if there's a conflict on this team, how does that impact over here? Or if coming down the pipeline, we see that we're going to be having to cost save, how's that going to impact everything? We need to be able to think, not just in, I need to fill this position today, but step back and go, there's a vacant position, but in a month's time, we're switching this. And you need to think that way. And that's what this systems thinking is all about. All three of these, especially the systems thinker one, require you to do some of that thinking that we often don't find time for or don't create time for in leadership. And if you're going to excel in this competency, if you're going to learn how to do this, think more strategically, be able to think in those systems ways, make sure that you're having that big macro view. You need to schedule time in to think this way. This kind of thinking just doesn't happen. It does in those little moments, when you're in the shower, you're driving and you're like, I just had this wonderful idea. But we need to create more of those because we are short on those. We need to make sure that we're creating time in our calendar to think more systemically, think strategically, see the big picture, connect to what's going on, all of the dots, the community, the impact we're having, what's coming down. If you want to excel, make sure that you're scheduling that into your calendar. If you are a member of my training library, the membership site that I run, you can go over and do a deeper dive into each of these sections. And then there is also a couple of worksheets to do. Worksheets where I ask you questions that help you start thinking about, how am I doing this? So for example, one of the questions on the worksheet is, what does my community need this week? So you start to think about that community concern, and you don't just sort of think about filling all the holes and making sure you've completely checked off all of the things in your to-do list, but you're also strategically thinking ahead about, how does my community need me, our organization, the individuals on our team to achieve something, to fill a gap, to support them? What is it that we're doing to support our community this week? Another question might be, what are the high targets we're achieving this week? And how am I going to celebrate when we reach those targets? So again, that sustainable productivity. We want to meet those high targets, but what are we doing to achieve them? So if you are in the training library, you can go over and grab that worksheet and do a little bit more of a deep dive into how you're applying the lessons today. If you're not in the training library and are interested, head over to kathyarcher.com/library and you will find all of the details. When you do this work to grow yourself as a leader, to increase your competencies, to be more effective and happier and more engaged in the work you're doing, you, my dear, are going to move from surviving to thriving in both your leadership and life. Go make the rest of your day awesome, my dear. If you found today's episode helpful, then you are going to love the training library. Many women leaders in nonprofits wish that they had a coach or a mentor to help them, but they don't believe that they or their organization can afford it. Oh, but you can. Inside of the training library membership site, you will not only get access to affordable and easily accessible ongoing personal and professional development training, you will also have access to a leadership coach at your fingertips. That way, when you hit those inevitable challenges that leadership will bring your way, you'll have both the resources and the support to navigate your way through them with confidence, composure, and while keeping your integrity intact. To find out more, head to kathyarcher.com/library. If you are enjoying the show, I'd love it if you could leave me a comment or a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening. Go make the rest of your day awesome.